Hello and welcome to the intro video on week 3 for this summer course. Now week 3 is going to focus primarily on literary elements. Now literary elements and literary devices are two terms you have likely heard thrown back and forth in many English classes in the past, and there's actually a slight difference. Let me just give you a brief overview of some common literary elements that you're going to see in the lessons in this unit. The first is one I hope you're familiar with already, and this is the plot. Every piece of fiction, and often even nonfiction, will have a plot to it. What is a plot? A plot is a sequence of events that tells a story. Now, plots can be done in different ways. Some plots are all in a straight line. A character begins, and then there's the middle, and then there's the end. Others are simply a series of episodes. Think like a TV show that would occur in just a series of little adventures over the course of a season, and maybe together they spell out a bigger plot. Some plots are episodic, some plots are flashbacks and flash forwards. We're given different pieces at different times, but still, whenever you wrap them all together, whenever you put them all in order, they all usually follow this pattern. And if you take a look below, you'll see the different elements. We have our opening. This is where we're introduced to the character. Who are we talking about? What are they doing? Where did they live? All of that fun stuff. Now, partway into this exposition and opening, something happens that draws the character in to the plot of the story. That could be an outside force coming in. That could be the character inheriting a lot of money. That could be the character making a mistake or signing up for something. Whatever it is, this starts the rising action. The rising action then builds, and the rising action is usually the bulk of the story. Now the climax, this is the most important part, the most dramatic part of the story. Every single action movie ever has a climax to it, one final fight at the end. Love stories have this, one final proclamation of love in the rain on a bridge. It's that one moment that the whole movie is built towards. Now the last two elements, the falling action and the resolution, you'll notice how on this pyramid over here, it's pretty even. However, this is a little more accurate. Usually the falling action and the resolution will happen rather quickly. Sometimes you get one that draws it out, but usually after that climax, it's wrapping up pretty fast. An example of one that's a little more balanced would be The Lord of the Rings, the first movie where Gandalf gets killed probably about the middle of the movie. Then the rest is spent of them running away and deciding they're going to split up. Now that's very rare. In a typical movie, the climax is at the end before we move on. Another literary element is characterization. Now, when you go and see a movie or when you read a children's book, this is usually done for you. The narrator will come out and say that Indiana Jones is tall and has a hat on and has brown hair and a whip and talks in a certain way. They'll just say it to you. When you see a movie, it's pretty easy. You just look at the character and you see how are they acting, what are they doing. Sometimes we'll get some flashbacks, but most of the time, most complex stories, they don't tell you these things. You have to figure them out as you go. So how do you do that? Well, you want to look at descriptions of this person. You want to listen to how they talk and what they say. What does the narrator say about them? And ultimately, what do they do? And you have to be the one to put it all together. Now, your brain is remarkable, and it is doing this all the time anyway. You do this with people you see on the street. You come up with characters for them. You have to do that when you read, too, because often you'll be asked, what is this character thinking, or what would this character likely do? You have to know that. Point of view. Now, in general, there are 3 points of view in a story. Usually it could be first person. Sometimes it's first person omniscient, but that's very rare. Usually it's first person limited. We're only in one person's head. The other 2 are third person, he and she. You'll see these pronouns. Now there's 2 types of third person. One is called limited, where we only know what's going on in maybe 1 or 2 characters' minds, typically the heroes. Or there's unlimited, omniscient it's called. That means all-knowing. In that case, we know what's going on in everybody's head. And this is interesting because it leads to dramatic irony. We know things that the characters don't because we're in all of their heads. If it's limited, though, sometimes we could be surprised because we don't know what the other characters are thinking. Also, for point of view, you want to ask yourself, is there bias? Is it reliable or unreliable? For example, if you have a narrator who, as part of the story, is crazy, well, how can you really trust anything that they're saying if they're crazy? Maybe some things are lies and that's going to come up later. So you have to ask yourself, do I believe this narrator or not? Setting. Now, setting is not a new concept. Normally we think of setting as the place, but it's more than just the place. It's the place, it's the time, it's the culture. Sometimes you're given a direct setting, New York 1933. Sometimes you're just given an idea, the Midwest in the 20th century, and you have to put it together. Sometimes it's mildly made up. It's a combination of settings. That's on you. The final and probably most important part of any story, most important literary element, is the theme. And a theme is a statement about life in general. It is not just a phrase. I have students come to me all the time and say the theme was love, or the theme was money, or the theme was happiness. No, those are not themes. Those are words. A theme is a statement. What about happiness? What about love? What about money? What does it have to do with people and with life? Now, money and happiness and love, those might have been in the story, but we need to make those into full sentences. We need to come up with an idea. If a story doesn't have a theme, it's not a good story. And I'll give you a hint, we don't give you bad stories to read in any class. Well, that's just a brief overview on the literary elements that you're going to be covering in this lesson. Remember, for each lesson, you either do the blog or the journal. Go through the soft chalk and answer the questions. I know there's a video on there, but after seeing this, you're probably set. And then complete the final project. I will be available if you need any help. Have a great day.